What is up? Welcome back. Not a podcast episode, whatever. Jackman, producer extraordinaire. Bart Pietrzak, owner, CEO of Project Power Gym, O'Fallon, Missouri. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for watching the reels. Thanks for hating on me in the comments. Thanks for sharing the show. That's not a show, but it's something that we like to do, and it's fun, and it's interesting, and it's entertaining, and it's helpful. So you click subscribe, you click like, you comment some stuff. If you don't like what you hear, appreciate the support for listening anyway. And tell a friend, make their day. Jackman, we are 1 week removed from PowerFest. And the last episode that dropped was you came up, which was the coolest, I think, thing that we've done, is you set up an entire interview booth. First of all, PowerFest, if you don't know what PowerFest was 1 year anniversary of us opening the gym. But really what it was is a celebration of our community. So we had 40 vendors come up. We had a car show. We had a 150-foot obstacle course bounce house. We had beer. We had food. It was an awesome time. Like, the whole city came out. It was absolutely stupendous. And one thing that we did is we had Jackman come out and set up a booth with cameras, with mics, and he let just passerbys do a podcast. Little quick quip. He sat down, asked them a question, had some spark cards, some cool questions. And, the community got to experience what it's like to do a podcast, to have this back and forth conversation. Although it's obvious that, it's just two people talking. When you have a microphone and cameras, it changes the game. You put yourself on a stage and you go, I better say the right shit, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say thanks for coming out and thanks for doing that. And I think that was super cool. The episode is up right now where you splice together everybody's answers and put them up there. And, dude, it's wild to see, what just the public has to say about stuff, Yeah. I interviewed a 4-year-old. That was pretty cool. I got interviewed by a 4-year-old as well. So that's cool, man. So how you been? How was PowerFest for you, and how you been since?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for I really, really appreciate you guys inviting me out and allowing me the opportunity to be a vendor. So that's cool.
For sure.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was like we were talking about before the cameras got rolling. Everyone on the staff, everyone was just energetic, making sure everything was going well, not just for the community, but for also, for people like me.
So you felt like my team did a good job making sure you're all right?
Oh, for sure.
Dude, shout out to my team.
Fuck
you guys, every single one of you was, I can't explain. I was trying to explain to Jack before. I've done events before, and to get a team of people to care about the cleanliness, the energy, the enthusiasm, the people, to do all the above and beyond things that you can do without having to be managed and told to and dragged through, like, that does not happen. And my team, we had 5 volunteers come, like, everybody. I couldn't have asked anyone to do any more or any better of a job than they did. So shout out to you guys. You guys deserve all the praise in the world, and I appreciate every single one of you. So, but as we were also talking before, you were telling me about the movie Revenant and how it explains your life right now. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen the movie The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, man, good guy.
Cool dude. In The Revenant, he's riding a horse, and he fucking rides the horse off a cliff, which is a crazy scene. But that's how I feel right now. I feel like everything that I'm building, all of these balls that I have in the air with the business, it could just collapse at any moment, and I could be that horse that just fucking flies off the cliff.
So you feel like there's an inevitable cliff coming?
Yeah, it feels like that.
Why?
I'm like, wait, like when? At what point? Because it's all of these mysterious unknowns that I have going on in my head of, like, it feels like I should be doing this. It feels like I should be doing something that I don't even know about. Like, I'm completely ignorant to. And it feels like there's a million of those things, and, like, all of those things are going to close in on me.
So you feel like everything's closing in on you, and you're just on borrowed time.
Yeah.
Like, you know for a fact you're not doing something you should be doing. You just don't know what that is.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Interesting. And, like, when did that start?
Probably like a week after, like, my first 4 clients,
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So you started, and then all of a sudden you started doing what you thought you should do in order to appease and produce the results you're trying to produce. And then you realize that you don't do this, you haven't done this You don't know how to do this, and then you're just making it up as you go.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And because you're making it up as you go, that's why you keep feeling like there's so much that you don't know. It's because you're just fucking making it up. And that feeling, like the reason I'm so intrigued is because like that feeling seldomly goes away until you've really reached some sort of position where you have so many pieces in play and so many people in important positions. But dude, that's that imposter syndrome that everyone talks about. That's that, you know, bad things are coming because you don't know all the things. So, you know, obviously there's good things that you made up, but inevitably there has to be a whole bunch of shit that I don't know, right? That is where you have to get really comfortable with just having enough faith in yourself to know that what it is that you do know or that you are doing is enough. Because you're right, there's an endless amount of things you're not doing that you could be doing. But that doesn't mean that those are the things that keep you successful. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Right? So in any business and anything, right now, the reason why you are unique in the fact that you've started your own brand and your own company, and you've really jumped in on it. The reason that's unique and the reason why that's not more followed is because just like the comments on the videos, right? Everybody has what they deem to be like a perfect way of doing things in their mind. And in order to even do something, you have to make a decision to actively not do 99% of those things because you can only do one thing at a time. So although I can acknowledge that there's a whole bunch of other shit that I can be doing, I am making a conscious decision to only do this one thing right now because this is what I know to do. And then anyone watching can be like, well, why didn't you do this and this and this and this and this? And the only reason that you didn't is because I'm doing this one thing first. Yes, you're right. I probably can do those other 8 things. And if you were to fucking witness my journey, you'd probably say, wow, you could have been 90% further along or 90% bigger or 90% more profitable. But the reason you can say that is because you're not fucking doing anything.
Right.
And you're watching. You're analyzing what I'm doing. And what I am doing is something, which is at least one thing, which is at least one thing more than you're fucking doing. Yeah. Right? And my one thing is moving me forward. So as you can judge my step and say my step wasn't a big enough stride or my step wasn't flat enough or my step stumbled, I'm fucking moving, motherfucker, and you're watching me move. So that feeling you have is because you know that if you were watching yourself, you'd be like, bro, you could be doing this and that, and there's probably this thing that's smarter, and if you talk to this person, he can give you a better idea. Don't fucking listen to any of that shit. Look at what you're doing, do it as good as you can possibly do it until you think of another thing to do, and then go do that. And if you can solidify your mind into that like premise, you'll look up in 5 years and go, holy shit, I've gone a long way, right? Or I was talking to a buddy. I was messaging my buddy the other day. You know, the armchair quarterbacks have all the fucking answers and none of the results. Why? Right? Because they're so scared to pick one of the 100 things they know they need to do. We are scared while doing that one thing.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you have to, and that's why it's important to have these conversations and to admit these type of things to one another that are in that same boat. Because the days you feel most scared, I may not feel as scared that day. But I have felt what you felt last week or the week before. And it's good to just keep reminding ourselves like, hey, dude, you're not standing on top of a mountain, right? Because if you're on one foot balancing on a tip, logic would tell you you're going to eventually fall down, right? And so as you're pulling yourself up in your business and in your life, you keep climbing that mountain at what you perceive to be a tip, but it's not a tip because you're looking straight down. But what you should be doing is looking up, and then you'll see, wow, I have a whole lot of ground around me that I'm just not looking at. And just put your other foot down. Like, you're all right. You're good. You're not at the top. We're nowhere near the top. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting when you started saying that's why I told you to stop talking.
Yeah.
Until we turned the microphones on. Yeah, dude. So do you think that helps you or hurts you as you go?
That feeling?
Yeah.
It's hard to say, I guess. It's hard to say because if I didn't have this feeling, would I either become stagnant or would I, not be pushing myself as far, or vice versa? Would I be relaxed and just be comfortable and have conviction in what I'm doing, or more conviction than what I am now? Those are the balancing act that I'm doing right now.
Dude, that's the biggest like turmoil in your mind, because, bro, we've talked about how suffering and sacrifice and pain and all these quote unquote negative things are like the biggest motivators, right? Well, if I'm actively trying to eliminate those out of my life, aren't I actively eliminating the things that are driving me to do cool shit, right? And I think there is a path that you start realizing like what you actually need to make yourself better, and what is just extra weight you're carrying because you don't know which piece of the puzzle is the key. And I think as not only your business grows and you have experiences where things go really well and things break down, you also just like listen, any job that is, let's say, on a assembly line, when you first join the job and you listen and you watch the safety video and then you watch the how to use this machine video, everything is taught to you exactly by the book of what you're supposed to do. Press this button, then you turn this thing, then you shave this, but you talk to any 15-year vet that's been running that machine, he goes, yeah, those 4 fucking steps don't matter. Like, if you do or don't do those, it doesn't fucking matter, right? In your first 2 weeks of the job, you'll skip step number 2 by accident, and you'll freak out, and you'll sweat, and you'll feel like you're gonna get fired, and blah blah blah. And then Jim, 15-year vet, goes, bro, like, don't worry about that. Like, watch. And then he does only 3 of the steps, and it turns out exactly the same. As you experience what it is you're experiencing, you will put more weight or less weight on the things that really do matter and the things that don't. And you only learn that by screwing it up and then realizing the consequences from the screw ups, which is the slipperiest slope of all time, because there's a lot of consequences that don't come immediately after you do or you don't do something. And I think that's where a lot of people screw up, is they can't differentiate between this doesn't matter at all or this doesn't matter immediately. Because if it doesn't negatively affect me right now, that doesn't mean that it's not a negative effect. Okay? So if you skip a piece of edit once, twice, 3 times, the client doesn't notice, no one notices, you go, maybe I don't need to do that step at all. But the quality of your edit is not as good as it could have been. That's going to hurt you in the long run, even though it might not be hurting you now. How? Because maybe the level of clientele that you're going towards needs that edit, needs that extra 5% polish, right? But because your current clientele don't really care, you get, fuck that 5%. It saves me another 2 hours a day. Guess what? You're stuck with your current clients, and then your business doesn't grow, and then you blame the economy. You blame all this other shit. But had you kept your 5% extra editing time, you'd go and further go and further go and further go. So that's an example of a consequence that doesn't bite you in the ass right away, but it's ultimately going to be the demise of your company. An example of cleaning up your edits, or forgetting to change like a setting or something like that, right? And you spend another 10 minutes trying to figure out what that setting is. And then you eventually realize that whether you put it on a number 1 or number 2, number 3, number 4, it actually gives you the exact same result no matter what. Then you stop stressing about that one piece. And there's one less thing to juggle. And that's part of experience and growth and learning, where you can dictate your time, where you can dictate your effort, and where you don't need to. You know what I'm saying? Same thing as like delegation. There's no different. Any person who takes pride in their work has a problem with delegation, truly, because ego and competitiveness tells me that I probably can do a better job than anybody else. Okay, that's ego, right? That's, if you give me the time, I will sit there and I will make it better than anybody else can do it, right? But if you want to go far, right, you take people. You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, take people with you. So I had to learn that delegation concept of, if it can be done 80% as good as I can do it, then give it to somebody else. Because 5 people doing 80% of what I can do is far greater than me doing 2 things at 100%.
Was that hard to
Still is.
wrap your brain around?
It
Yeah.
still is, dude. It still is. The thing that I'm most proud of myself is allowing my team to learn. Not to be babied, not to be handheld. I allow them the opportunities to learn, which means I give them the opportunities to fail. And the reason that's hard is because when they do, it technically hurts me and this business every single time in the short term. If they drop the ball because I gave them enough freedom, if they didn't execute to the standard I would like them to, or if it didn't give them the result that I know it could have gotten, but I gave them the opportunity to do it on their own or take the reins and take more of an ownership of whatever execution. When it doesn't go well, we all win because it becomes a lesson for them to get better that they will not forget, because they had skin in the game, they felt the pain, they didn't like how it went down, and they knew they were responsible for it. So not only do I gain a lesson, they gain a lesson, but they also gain progress, because I have, again, I'm fortunate to have a team that actually gives a shit and actually wants to get better. And I know that if I allow them to stumble, that will get us all running faster eventually, right? But again, out of desperation, we talked about it on one of the other episodes where, like, if you really need to pay your fucking bills and you really need this person to say yes, it's very difficult to think of a long-term lesson or the long-term good of the company. You just want this person to say yes no matter what. And the most confidence I have is within myself to make that happen. But every single time I choose to do that, I am shortcutting the growth of the entire company, and I am lessening the effectiveness of my team. Not to mention, and this is a big thing for if you have, if you're in charge of people, you can't give them true glory. You can't give them true satisfaction of work if they in their heart know you were the majority of the reason it went well, right? If I interject on a tour, so if I see, let's say Annie's doing a tour, and I'm like, we really need to sign this fucking person, and I jump in, and like I let her talk, and then I talk, and then we tag team it, and we do great, and at the end I'm like, Annie, you did so fucking awesome, I'm so proud of you, great job. She'll say thanks, and she'll be like, I didn't really do all that much. or why the hell didn't you trust me to do it on my own? That's real. That's a real thing. And you have to give people you can't have it both ways. You can't want people to feel super satisfied in themselves without running the risk of feeling like failures because they screwed up. You have to give them the opportunity to screw up so that they can feel good about when it doesn't happen, when they do good. You can't, there's no reward without the risk. And so as a leader, that's why you have to demonstrate everything that you want done and how you want it done on as much of a basis as you possibly can. Because as they watch you, because they're always watching, everyone's always watching, as they watch you, they'll understand that there's no other way of doing it. And they'll understand that if I were to interject, it would have gone well. And if it doesn't go well for them because they thought they could do it better or differently or whatever, they make their own conclusions, right? Having to convince people of everything is not the way to go. The best way for people to learn is for themselves to make the decision that they were right or they were wrong or they were proud of themselves or they were not. It's an internal thing, right? You can't do that unless they have an example set for them of what the right way it is to be done, and then the freedom to execute it or not execute it, and then the freedom of watching the consequences and repercussions of their actions. You give that opportunity over and over and over and over again, I think that's how PowerFest happens. I have a team full of people who are confident in their own abilities to execute ideas and concepts regardless if they were given the exact playbook or not. And that's a miracle. That's why we're going to be one of the most successful companies on the planet, is because you get a big enough group of people in that regard. That is an unstoppable force. I don't give a fuck if we sell tires or if we sell sheds or fucking sewer caps. You get a group of people that have that kind of tenacity and belief and cohesiveness, like we're gonna help more people than anybody. You know, but you have to have that ability to allow bad shit to happen, and you know, you have to be strong enough and willing enough to help clean up messes. You know, when they occur. Because if you just try to keep it squeaky clean, like that's, like nothing's ever been built cleanly. Nothing. You even like Ferrari factories, like when they're, I don't know if you've ever seen like where they put motors together and shit. It is spick and fucking span. I mean, white floors, white walls, white tables, like everyone's dressed nice. Like this is not like a mechanic shop where everything is oily and shit. But the reason it's that way is not because they don't get messy when they put these things together. It's because they have the standard of cleaning up after themselves once they make the mess. You have to allow them to make the mess to build anything. Everything that's ever been built is built messy. It's built by people who are tired. It's built by people who don't know what the fuck they're doing. It's people who think they're a fraud. It's people who have imposter syndrome. It's people who have had to clean up other people's messes. Like that's how anything has ever been built, ever. So like this perception of I need to do it in such a way where no screw ups happen, nothing bad happens. Like you're not gonna attempt anything. If the only things you attempt are the things that you know you can keep yourself clean doing, you're not doing anything, and it's not gonna amount to fucking anything. You know. So you have to find solace in those feelings that you're feeling right now. That not only are they normal, but they're like, they're how you know you're doing it for real. That's like a badge of honor.
So what would I be feeling like if I wasn't doing it for real? Confident and happy-go-lucky?
Yeah, you would feel like a 22-year-old who has all the fucking answers. You know, I thought, dude, there was not a person who knew more about life than me at 22. I could tell you every analogy and every black and white, and this is how this should be, this is how this should be. And that amount of like cockiness, like, is the biggest sign that you really don't know anything about life. So, which is the other side of the scale, that when your business is doing well and things are going well and everything's cool and like there's nothing really going wrong, you go, this isn't right. This is not okay. Which is why there's things like vacations, I think, because you like allow yourself 7 days to feel okay with nothing going wrong. Right? I'll give myself 7 days and when nothing goes wrong, I'll be totally okay with it. But outside those 7 days, if nothing is breaking and nothing is like messing up, I'm probably not doing enough. No, I'm not doing enough. I'm not trying hard enough. I'm not expanding myself. I'm not pushing. I'm not, you know what I mean? If you work out and never get sore, are you really working out?
Probably won't see results from it.
You're not doing anything.
Yeah.
You know, you can, you know, wash your windows of your car every single day, but your arm's not going to get jacked from moving back and forth. You know? So, you know, it's a catch-22, man. Aren't we really just talking about life in general?
Yeah.
We're not talking about anything business related. We're talking about just, and that's something that along the way I have really like started to really like push into, is just how natural everything actually is.
Say more. Yeah.
How connected, how, like, of nature. What does nature do? Nature is this homeostasis of one goes in, one goes out. One goes over here, one goes to the opposite. Like, everything always just works in a unified way. And you can't have in without out, up without down, cold without hot. Like, the opposites are the only way things can exist. So, you know, we've talked about that 100 times. And organically, like, you're going to have those ebbs and flows. Organically, you're going to feel confident and not confident. Like, that's all part of it. And so if you're ever actually striving for just one part of that, like, you're striving for death. Because if you don't have both of those things, you're not alive. There isn't a thing in nature that doesn't consistently have one and then the other. Mm-hmm. Everything's in cycles. Everything. That's how the universe works. And again, with like quantum physics, you zoom in far enough, it's just dots of energy floating around, bouncing off of one another in space. And there is literally no separation between me, this couch, that floor, your boots, your body, that wall, the girl that just pulled up, the tree behind her. Like, it's just dots bouncing off of one another. And you could not tell a dot that's a car, and a dot that's a couch, and a dot that's a sky, and a dot that's a mole, and a dot that's a ground. They're all the same dots. Protons, neutrons, electrons. It's all the same shit.
So how do we find, if we're all just a bunch of dots, how do we find meaning in any of that?
So, just as, we've created this goal of only happiness and only good feelings and only, like, we look at what's the quote unquote best parts of life, and I just want to fill my box with just those things. That's what a lot of people create their meaning behind, is like, I'm going to create a perfect life for my kids, and I'm going to create a perfect life for my spouse. I'm going to create a perfect life for myself. And then they just work their entire lives trying to eliminate negative shit out of their life. Which that's not life. Like, the literal life equation. Joe Rogan had a metaphysicist on his podcast, and they were working out the equation of the universe. Like, they're literally trying to put it together equals life. Big part of that equation is chaos. So literally in parentheses, like, you have to multiply this by chaos. Because chaos institutes progress. If life had nothing to work through, there'd be no reason for it to change or to grow. That growth is experience, and that experience is what we call life. So if my goal in life is to eliminate all negativity, if my meaning in my life is to eliminate all negativity, as I become more successful in that, I'm actually taking life away. We talked about this, I think, last time. Like, why is depression so rampant? Depression is rampant not because everybody is sad. It's because everybody is taking away the ability to be sad. Because if you take away the ability to be sad, you're taking the ability away to be happy. Okay? Depression has more to do with avoidance of life, which is what makes people so sad. If I eliminate all the things that have the potential to make me unhappy, as I strip each one of those things away, the opportunity for happiness to come in exits. It stops. It stops being successful. If I stay at home, because when I go out in public, I usually have bad experiences with people, I have now stripped my opportunity away to have a good experience with people. So what am I left with? With no experience of people. And no experience, quote unquote, purgatory, is worse than hell. Mm-hmm. There's nothingness. And nothingness is that cavern that people who are depressed keep talking about. Nothing that they enjoy brings them joy anymore. It's not because joyful things don't make you happy. It's because you haven't been able to give yourself opportunities to truly be sad. So meaning of life for me, what's the meaning in all this if we're all just one connected energy? My meaning is to experience it all. To experience heartbreak, to experience love, to experience defeat, to experience victory, to experience poverty, and to experience wealth. That's the meaning, is to fucking live. And life involves all of it. I need to feel all of it. And the more of it that I feel, the more life I will feel, and the more life I will have lived when it's all done. Because if I am picking and choosing parts of life that I choose to experience, trying not to experience other pieces, then I am actively not experiencing life. And I self-sabotage my opportunities to feel all those positive things because I don't give myself the option or the opportunity to feel their opposites. The only way anyone can feel super proud of themselves for building something out of nothing is when they try to build something out of nothing and it fucking fails. Because if you built this and it goes super successful right away, you still don't know what it feels like because you haven't felt its opposite. If your only experience with building a business is you built it, you stayed clean, everything went great, and you made $1 gajillion, you're still left feeling unfulfilled. Because the pride that you should feel from building something high can only come from when you tried to build it and it fucking crumbled. And then you try again. 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 And then the 9th time it fucking works. And that 9th time, I wouldn't trade that feeling for anybody. You see what I'm saying? But without the 8 failures of heartbreak and everyone telling you you're a fucking idiot for keep trying and why are you doing this to yourself and you're obviously not good at this and you're not qualified and blah, 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 they will never feel that 9th attempt success. And that's what I feel sorry for people. That's why those negative comments on, when they were blasting me on Nice Guys Finish Last, those people will never experience like true happiness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what they're doing is just trying to avoid sadness. They're trying to avoid situations that might make them feel bad. Because in that taking control and having good sex that's firm and fun and exciting and adventurous and all that shit takes the risk of potentially your partner not being into it. And potentially telling you no, and potentially saying that's too rough, or I'm not weird. I'm just saying.
And if they say that, back off.
You stop, right? Consent is just common sense, guys. I'm not a fucking idiot, but you have to run the risk of them not being into it in order to experience that fun, that excitement, right? But if I can acknowledge that it's very risky to have fun sex, and it's much higher likelihood that I'll have sex if I just do super boring, missionary, quiet, lights off. You'll go, sex isn't really that great.
Hey, what's wrong with that?
Have you had good sex, bro? That's my point, dude. That's exactly right. Like, there's a time and place, guys. Whatever, fuck the internet. I'm not going to explain myself. But without running the risk, no shit. If you're on the outside going, well, if you had just taken it easy and if you had just not asked for so much, yeah, but then you don't get to experience that awesomeness, man. And like right now, that is way too rampant. As everybody watches everything, they watch the perfect version of everything. They watch the perfect body. They watch the perfect business. They watch the perfect motivational person. They watch the perfect podcast. They watch all this perfection. And then they look at everything, including themselves. And whenever it doesn't fit into that perfection, they say, well, I'm not going to do it because I'm going to save myself the embarrassment. Mm-hmm. And every time you save yourself the opportunity for embarrassment, you are saving yourself from happiness, joy, jubilation, excitement. Mm-hmm. And it's fucking sad. So the meaning of life, fucking live. All that life has to offer. The yin and the yang, the both sides, feel it all. And when you're laying on your deathbed, you'll have no fucking regrets. And I'm only 36. I'm not saying I fucking know everything. But at this stage of the game, now it's one of the biggest revelations that I have had is not to be so down about the down parts of life because they're unavoidable.
You need them.
They are the up parts.
Right.
Like it's, again, you zoom in, there's no difference. Dots are dots, bro. Like success and failure it's just a fucking dot vibrating against another dot. We create all this bullshit in our mind, which you need to read the book, The Untethered Soul. Have I talked to you about this book?
I think you have. You've mentioned it. Yeah.
Probably, because I fucking love the book. Because a lot of these like thoughts that cloud your mind and like fuck you up come from your thoughts in your head, right? So you hear voices in your head, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wouldn't you agree that most people think that those voices that you hear in your head are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're talking to yourself, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking to yourself, who's listening?
Me.
You're listening. So how can you be the voices in your head and the being that's listening to the voices? Can't. So the voices in your head aren't you. The voices in your head our fears and doubts and the devil and the angel and all this shit. The one hearing the voices is you, your soul, your energy, your chakra, whatever. You still have a decision to make when you hear what they're saying because you're the one listening, never talking. You can never hear yourself talk because every time you hear yourself talk, it's actually something else talking and you're the one listening to it. So no matter what, there is no one way of anything because you're the one listening. You're just the one absorbing the energy and then making an active decision to release an energy. And that's why I think people and humans specifically have become what we've become, is I think we're the only species able to turn energy into something else or cultivate energy from other energy. For example, if a wild animal is attacked by another wild animal, the animal doesn't try to calm the other animal down. It doesn't try to reason with him. It doesn't try to say, what's going on in your day? Why are you so upset? Are you hungry? It doesn't do any of that. It responds with anger or it fucking hightails out there. We're the only thing that you can berate me. You can give me all this negative fucking energy and it's just vibration on vibration. And I can actively take it, manifest it, absorb it, and try to put it back in a completely different vibration. And through us and our ability to do that, we've been able to accomplish all of this shit. But just like yin and yang and everything is nature, we've also created a whole bunch of negative shit through that same process of I will take your positive and I will choose to just do a bunch of negative shit with it, you know? But the choice is ours. That's the one thing that that's why quantum physics is such an exciting topic for me, because it's the only science that your consciousness can change. There's an experiment that literally proves that if you observe something, it behaves differently than if you didn't observe it. All of life changes. So,
that's fucking, isn't that crazy?
dude, the fact that this isn't more talked about or even taught in schools.
Yeah.
You don't have to get into high level quantum physics in order to get into the very basics of the observation of particles changes the behavior of particles. If you need an elaboration of what that means all right, man, I'm trying to make this as simple and everything's made of dots, okay? They have proven that a single proton, which is just like a little marble, a single marble, when not observed, when there's no camera on it, when there's no human looking at it, they have proven that thing is in infinite places at once. Okay? One dot. It's not multiplied into many dots. It's one dot. It is in infinite places at the same time. And then
Can I ask you a question
Yeah.
to intercede?
Yeah.
Okay, how are they observing, or how are they figuring this out? If
This
they
is
aren't
called the
observing it?
double slit experiment.
Okay.
If you need to Google it or YouTube it, YouTube the double slit experiment. Basically, I don't want to take too much time. We got 10 minutes.
Okay.
Basically, they set up, I'm going to butcher this, but they set up two slits, right? So you have a board, and in the board there's two slits, and on the back side of the board there's some space and then a wall. And they have a gun set up that shoots protons, marbles. Okay? And their theory is they're going to shoot this first wall with two slits, and sometimes it's going to hit the wall. Sometimes it's going to go through one slit and hit the wall behind it. Sometimes it's going to go through the other slit and hit the wall behind it. Every other time it's going to hit the wall in front of it and it's not going to pass through, right? So if you were to think about that with tennis balls, and every single time, and let's say you painted these balls so that when they hit that back wall, they left a dot on where they hit. What would you assume the pattern would be on that back wall?
The pattern of the slit.
Right.
The opening. Yeah.
Right. Now, there you have two slits, and on the back side of that, you should have two patterns of straight up and down lines of where the balls would hit. Well, when they observed it and they put the camera on it, sure enough, fucking exactly how they said it would happen happened. They leave for the night. The camera malfunctions. They come back, and there's dots everywhere. The entire back wall just has patterns of up and down lines across the entire back wall. So they're like, okay, something got fucked up with the shooter. Like maybe the shooter malfunctioned and moved and whatever. So they set it up again, and they looked at it again, and sure enough, it hit exactly how they decided it should hit. They put the camera, they leave for the night, they come back, the whole fucking thing is covered again. So then the third night, they left it on, and then they left the camera directly on the slits and on the shooter to see if something's getting in the way overnight. And they come back, just the 2 lines. So when there was nothing observing the gun and the slits, the pattern was a wave pattern. A wave pattern, whenever you have a wave, if you look at a drop of little water and it creates a wave, and that wave passes through 2 slits, it multiplies at each slit and creates 2 new wave patterns. It's called an interference wave. And when they hit the back wall, wherever the waves intersect, would create a line. So there was lines from left to right when nothing was observing the experiment. The moment they put an eyeball or a camera on it, it acted exactly how they believed it should act.
Oh, man.
This is a fucking old experiment, man. That proves that when something is not observed, its potential is infinite. And when we apply consciousness to it, our consciousness, for whatever reason, can intercept the vibrations of atoms and make them perform how we believe they should perform. Which then means that whatever I am looking at only behaves and looks the way it is because my personal belief in that matter. Which begs a lot of questions, which is why this is a big science, because if you're looking at something and I'm looking at something and we have different beliefs, shouldn't we be looking at different things? Like, how can there be one reality if everybody has, right? That's my biggest question with it, and I'm learning the answers to it, but that's way too deep of an answer. But, dude, there's so much, and that's just the first thing. That should spark your interest enough to start diving into that wormhole. And these things aren't theory. Like these are experiments over and over and over and over again. And now you've heard the Oprahs of the world and the Andys and any highly successful person talks about manifestation, talks about visualization, talks about energy and vibration, and they talk about all this shit. And it's all foo-foo shit. For everybody, it's all foo-foo. And then you learn about this experiment, and you're like, oh, shit, maybe there's a little bit to that, right? And then, thoughts become things, and you go, whoa, fuck. Like, it's hard to explain this place. I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal here, but, like, this is a miracle. The amount of shit that we talked about the origin stories, like how many obstacles and how impossible each one of them was to surpass, and we somehow did. I can't say that doesn't have something to do with the fact that my belief never wavered. Like, I saw it, I felt it, I knew it. Like, there wasn't a question for me whether this was going to work or not. So any single time any of those particles came together that looked like a problem, they ended up vibrating in a way that turned out to be a solution. Because that was my observation. That was my belief pattern. But the funny thing about belief is the moment you try to sell yourself on a belief, it proves that you don't believe it.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Totally.
Which is the irony in all of this, which is the yin and the yang, and the shit I've been saying all along, is you need everything's opposite. So, if I hope you will like me, that means I have a belief that you do not like me. Right? I am coming from the status of you don't like me. So what am I telling to the universe? What am I vibrating out into the world? What is my belief? You don't like me. Guess what happens? You don't like me. No matter how much I can convince, or the voices in my head, right? We talked about that. If the voices in my head are like, say this, bless you.
Thank you.
He'll like me if you say this. He'll like me if you say that. He'll like me if you do this. He'll like me do that. Like, that means that you really don't think he likes you. And you just, like, that's what, the universe doesn't give a fuck about feelings or, it just, this is what your belief is, and this is what I'm going to create. And yielding that power is extremely important, which is why when we first started talking about you feeling afraid of all the shit you don't know and this and that, as long as you believe in what you're doing, it's more than enough.
That's you give me some confidence because I've never imagined myself like not being successful in life. Like, not that I've been trying to force it. It just doesn't show up in my. The only time I ever think of myself in the future is successful.
Mm-hmm. But you said, what was that, last or 2 episodes ago, when I talked about like your new floor, that we come from less. So in our minds, like we're gonna eventually go back to less, right? So how do those 2 things work at the same time?
It's I don't know.
How do you view yourself as successful, or that you will be successful, or that things will work out, but at the same time have a belief that you are of less, or you've come from less, and so you're used to less, and so that's where you're gonna be?
I don't think I have an answer for you right now.
Yeah, man.
I don't know.
That's because there aren't answers, dude. There's just theories, and then we just die at the end. You know, that's the beauty of this, is there isn't any answers. It's just experiences, and then we get to share them, and we try to see what parts of our answers were good and what parts of our answers turned out to be not answers. But that's, I think, a big one. If you can marry those 2 things and just truly believe that everything you touch will turn to gold because you will make it so, you know, as long as you don't have this, like, you don't hang your definition, and this is something I'm working on. I hang my definition on struggle. I hang my definition on hard work. I hang my definition on like perseverance and determination and all that. And that's great. That's good. But like, I don't want the universe to keep making everything fucking really hard, you know, on purpose, just because that's what I am feeling comfortable with. Because I know there's lives out there that get to experience both the positive and the negative, but I don't know, man. I just know all things are possible. All things are capable as long as you're okay with both sides of the coin. So I guess it's because, you know, I'm working this out in my head as I talk. I guess it's because my want of life is a +10. I think that's why I keep feeling -10s. And I guess that's why you shouldn't ever really feel bad about the -10s, because you're setting yourself up for +10s. So I could very easily, and I'm sure there's a lot of businesses out there that never let them get past a -2, but at the same time, they'll never get past the +2. And that's not good enough for me. So as long as I'm away from 0, I'm happy. 0 is a bad place to be.
Purgatory.
Well, time to go train some people. That's my time.
Sweet.
Thanks for the good question. Thanks for letting me talk for an hour.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Click, like, subscribe, share this shit with your friends, or I won't turn that alarm off.
Don't be a pussy.
Don't be a pussy. Peace.